Welcome to Elevate, a Women's Leadership Institute podcast where we showcase stories, celebrate successes, and shift culture.
All right. Well, once again, welcome to the Elevate podcast of the Women's Leadership Institute. My name's Chris Jenkins, and I'm lucky to be guest hosting again here with Patty Cook. Appreciate you being here as always, Patty, and thanks for having me. We also today have a very special guest, Carine Clark, who is joining us to talk a little bit about her experiences here in Utah. And Carine, just as a quick intro, and then would love to have you talk a little bit about yourself. But you and I got to work together at Banyan, which was a lot of fun for me, a great experience. Have always cherished those moments, although there was a lot of learnings during that time. It was a great experience for me. And today you are at Lumio, where you are the chief of everything, I think. I don't know if that's the official title, but and would love to have you introduce yourself, kind of talk about what you're doing now. And then you sit on a lot of boards. You explained several of them that I can't remember all of them. Chairman of the board.
I can't remember all of them
Domo.
either.
Yeah.
So first, thank you for inviting me today. I always love being with my friends. And yes, we did have a lot of fun at Banyan. There might have been costumes involved. There might have been pie fights involved.
Yeah.
There might have been an eclipse involved. It was a very fun time.
Yeah.
And I appreciated your work there. I talk about that experience often because when we decided to outsource engineering, that was like a core memory for the time we were there. So thank you. Well, as most people know, people say, "What do you do?" And I never have an answer for that because I'm kind of a mosaic of things that interest me. Right now, I'm the chief innovation officer, chief experience officer, chief people officer, chief marketing officer at Lumio. But I'm actually going to be rolling out of there soon. I have a CEO opportunity that I've accepted, and I'll announce that at the end of the summer. A surprising one. Every time I take a different job, people are like, "What is she doing?"
Yeah.
Like when I went to Lumio, what is she doing? Well, I had an interest in solar. So I just do what interests me. But you know that about me.
Yeah.
I'm on a bunch of boards. My biggest board responsibility is probably the chairman of the board for Domo. I love that job. I love that company. I enjoy the folks there. A lot of my former employees are employees there. So I just feel this kind of interesting responsibility to them. And I enjoy working with Josh James. He's one of the founders of Silicon Slopes. He is kind of like Willy Wonka in that he, whatever he touches is a golden ticket. And he's had quite a slog at Domo, but I think he's learned a ton, and it's still a great company for Utah and for what they do. I do serve on a bunch of boards. Another public company board. I'm on the Nelnet Bank board. I was just telling you guys that I'm on the Olympic bid committee on the governing board and the strategic board, and it's a labor of love for me.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks for telling us a little bit more about you and some of your experiences. I'd like to know, we've had a lot of conversations, but I'd like to maybe know or hear something that's somewhat unique about you in your life that we don't normally hear. I've listened to different podcasts. I know you've talked to a lot of people, you've spoken at a lot of events, but just love to know what it is that's kind of unique about you that got you here.
Well, most people are surprised to hear that I was paralyzingly shy as a young person, that I ate lunch by myself everyone. They're like, "What?" I told that to a group of young women. They're like, "Confidence just flies off you when you walk down the hall." I'm like, "Oh, no, not the case." Still have stage fright when I get on stage, and I speak a lot. So when you see me walk on stage, like the 5 minutes before, I'm like breathing out of a paper bag, thinking about how can I get out of this? People don't know that. People are surprised. So the lesson in that is that you can push past some of the challenges that came with you, when you came to the planet. I was at the Crossroads of the World event last week that Zions Bank hosted. It was a fabulous event. It was fabulous. The President Bush was there and Jeff Flake was there. All these politicians and industry folks from all over the world were there. And I was scheduled to introduce and to interview Princess Rima from Saudi Arabia. And because of the challenges in the Middle East, she had to pull out at the last minute. And everyone was super disappointed. I was disappointed. But part of me was like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to go on stage, which is weird for people because they think, oh, no, she loves the spotlight. No, actually, I like to be in the background. So people are usually surprised to hear that I still have stage fright and that I'm still that fifth grader who ate lunch by herself every day.
Was there an event or something you really wanted that took you out of that, or it was just a gradual process?
Well, when I was in high school, my father, I was living in Germany, so I spent most of my formative years in Germany, which is part of who I am today. Because I see the world I'm very open to the universe of possibilities because I lived in a place where I was a foreigner. When I was 17, my parents moved back to the United States. My dad was stationed at the Pentagon, and I decided to stay in Germany by myself. I had $500 in my checking account. I didn't have a driver's license. I lived in a maid's quarters, which is basically a sink and a bed. And my parents left me there. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, like you are shy and don't want to talk to anyone. And this is going to be a problem. So I had to take the streetcar or the bus or the underground to school and to work and to church. And I had to just stop being afraid. So, and it was terrifying. Be by myself. I would call on the payphone every Saturday afternoon, call my parents at Fort Belvoir where my dad was stationed. And the whole time I was like, I got to grow up. I got to grow up. I only have $500 in my checking account. But I taught myself this trick when I couldn't sleep. I said to myself, okay, what is the worst thing that can happen to you? And can you survive it? So the worst thing that happened to you is you get super nervous. And the answer is always yes, I can always survive it. So that's how I got through most situations, like getting to the airport because I had to fly out of Frankfurt and I had to fly on Pan Am, which is no longer an airline. But and my mother required that we wear a dress and a suit when we traveled. So that was painful. But I was like, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen? I missed my flight. Can you survive it? Yes, you can. Okay, don't miss your flight. I would have these conversations with myself. So over time, I got braver and braver, and I just decided just do it anyway. So I don't ever put the fear away. It's like I acknowledge, okay, this is terrifying for you. Okay, just do it anyway. And that's pretty much how I got through everything. Just do it anyway. And since I ate lunch by myself every day, I'm not afraid to do things by myself. I'm not afraid to break through boundaries. I'm not afraid. I'm the only woman in the meeting. It doesn't bother me. I don't even think about it anymore because I'm not afraid to just do it anyway.
Yeah, I love that a lot. Just that mentality of not being afraid at all, and it's obviously taken time to get there. But you mentioned, as you've learned to kind of come out of that a little bit, that you've had to interact a lot with people, right? That's a part of the fear too. When I'd heard the term sort of humble, hungry, and smart before, but when you and I interacted for the first time, you had said you included smart with people. And I thought that was really interesting. Had never heard that attached to it. What is it about being smart with people that is important to you?
So I give all the credit to Pat Lincioni. So he was at Bain Capital when I was at Novell, and he was a consultant that was helping the company. And then he was famous, all of a sudden, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, 5 Temptations of a CEO, all his books. And I love him. I give him credit because his whole premise about the ideal team player is someone who's humble, hungry, and smart. But if you read the book, he says smart is table stakes. So everyone is smart. So it's not smart like book smart. It's smart EQ smart, understanding smart about people. So if you dial that in, and whether you have that skill or not, if you learn how to be smart about people, which means put yourself in their shoes, then it changes everything. So when I was younger in high school, I'd walk into a room and I was reflecting on myself. Oh, I'm not dressed right, or I'm too tall. I'm not as smart as, I'm not as fill in the blank enough. And if you turn that around to when you walk into the room to say, who looks like they're having a bad day? Who is sitting by themselves? Who looks like they could need a lift? Who looks like they would appreciate someone who could be funny sitting next to them? And it changed everything to turn it all on the other side. And I see that most problems that folks have, it's because they're not smart about people. They don't understand that everyone has different things. So my team learned really quickly, hey, Carine, extreme introvert. And after we have a big function with 10,000 of our partners, not the time to go to her and ask her, hey, I should have a raise because I'm sucking my thumb. They know, they learned over time that there were certain things that to manage me that they had to be aware of. And so that's why I always say humble, hungry, smart about people, because every problem, every challenge, every issue, every person that makes me crazy, I can distill down to they're not humble, they're not hungry, or they're not smart about people. 100%. Investors.
Wow, interesting.
100%. 100%. On this trip to Africa, there was someone that was bugging me, and I was like, oh, that person not humble. That's the rub. Okay, so then I'm fine about it. Oh, they're not smart about people. They're like treating the wait staff like they're wait staff. It's like, so it helps me distill everything into very simple terms.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think that can apply, and you mentioned it, to everything, but like I just think about it as a founder right now. We're hiring a lot, we're hiring new people all the time, and it's difficult to know who the right person is for the job, for the type of thing you're looking for. But I think if you were to distill it down to those levels, then at a minimum, you know that not only can you work with them, but they're going to work in the right type of way
Right.
that you might want.
Right. So I'll give you an example. When Matt Holland was leaving UVU, he said, "Hey, I really would like you to be on the search committee for the new president." I was like, "Oh no, that's not me. Like, that's too big of a responsibility." He said, "Look, the board of trustees, the board of regents, the faculty, the staff, there's all these people on this board, and we need an independent. So we want you to be independent." I'm like, "Heck no." So I went on a trip. I was in Hawaii, and he called me back, and he's like, "I'm not joking. Like, I really need you to do this." And I was like, "Okay, I'm going to get permanent brain damage, but I'll do it." So it was actually a great process. I met all kinds of people. We had so many candidates, but it was run by the State Board of Education, which, they're pretty formal and not a lot of fun because they have a hard job. So we were interviewing the final 14, I think, and I had on the top of every resume, I had HHS, and I had this little, just a check. It wasn't a score; it was just a check. Yeah. And I was sitting next to Wilford Clyde and what's his first name? Woodbury, Brother Woodbury, let's call him. And they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, my brothers, this is my filter. This is my filter for making choices and judgment." They ordered the book at the break and were like skimming it with the ideal team player. And then they had HHS. And so that's how I used to pick my finalists was, are they humble, are they hungry, smart people? Because you're right, people can interview very well.
Right.
When I was at Merit CX, I was trying to hire a position for senior automotive, like senior vice president of automotive, really hard job. Lives in Detroit, works with the automotive industry, like punishing. And I had two really strong candidates that everybody loved. And so I said to them, "What are we going to do?" And they said, "Let's bring them back in and let's make a decision." So we brought them back in, and two great candidates. Would have done great. But I decided, okay, I'm going to index on humble, hungry, smart about people. So one of the candidates came in and I said, "Hey, so like just a few questions. What's the name of the woman at the front desk that helped you with all your," they're like, What do you mean? Like the woman who did all your travel and like you should help you for a while. He's like, I don't know what you mean. So I was like, not a problem. So I thought, oh, he made no effort. This woman who welcomed everyone into the bosom of the company.
Totally.
And she's a Black Polish woman. So like, she's going to stick out. Yeah. So the next guy I said, "Hey, what about, how's your cat?" Like he knew everything about her. So he's the guy I hired because he cared about the person that we cared about, which was the front desk person.
That's a great story.
They might have both been great, but the one we hired was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. It's fun to hear those kinds of stories, right? I think that's just the type of culture that not only do I want to embody at the company that I'm running right now, but also just in the state in general. Like, I think it makes a lot of sense as we're starting to build out more of a name here in Utah. But speaking of that, I'd be curious to get your perspective, given that Utah ranks last or near last in almost all categories for women, in how they can progress in Utah. Like, from your own experience, why is it difficult for women here in Utah and working in Utah?
Well, I think it's difficult for women everywhere, but I think that it's especially difficult here. We have some cultural challenges. We have some cultural issues that I'm pretty open about. A couple months ago, I'm the chair of the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. So you're going to see these boards come out like randomly, and I forget, oh yeah, I'm on the chair. And he had a women's luncheon at the mansion. I'm like, could I just be invited to the men's luncheon? Because I don't love going to the women's luncheon. Because the women that show up, they just complain all the time. They're just like, this is broken, this is broken. USA Today, we're the worst state in the nation. I get all that. Yep. But I came prepared with a list of ideas that I had for things that we could do. So an example is at UVU, they have a Women's Success Center. And we make donations so that we can pay for scholarships to help those women have We Care, to get part-time jobs, just to get them on an educational track. I love that program. I think it's brilliant. So I said to the governor, I think we should have that program at every state school. I think that should be part of every school should have that. If the state's giving them money to run their schools, then we should have this program. He's like, great idea. I had an idea that UVU, since they have a concurrent enrollment program, they could have a program where all of their students read to young people in a classroom. Because in my community, in my neighborhood, as an adult, you can go in there and just sit while they read. Because they read differently to a stranger adult than they do to their parents. Sure. All you got to do is sit there. Like, you can just be like a mushroom. Like, you don't have to do a ton. You're just helping them read. And it means that child's important. I said, if we made this a requirement for every state school, this would raise literacy in our state like overnight. Just use the concurrent enrollment program. So back to your question. I put it on the women. I don't put it on the men. Because I need women to find their voice. I need them to stand up. I need them to speak up. And a lot of them haven't found their voice yet, and they don't have this courage to speak up until after the meeting's over. Yeah. Or till after. So if an aggressive male comes at them for something, or an aggressive anyone comes at them for something, they're like, and then they're like, oh, well, anyway, after in the parking lot in their car. So it's like, no, I need young people, women. I need you to speak up. I need you to say, hang on, stop. Hey, hey, hey. My favorite thing is hey, hey, hey. 3 hays. Hey, hey, hey. Because when you say hey, 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 everybody stops and listens to you. Doesn't matter what you got to say. Gives you time to think.
It's awesome.
It's like my trick for young people. It's like, just say hey, hey, hey. And then everybody's like, what do you got to say? But I need women to apply for jobs, right? Patty, you and I were talking about politics. I don't love politics. I'm supportive of women going into politics. It's just not my jam. I need women to apply for the jobs. I need them to raise capital. I need them to start companies. I need them. So I'm doing everything I can to help women find their voice, to show up, to apply. A lot of women won't apply unless they're 100% qualified for a job. That's on us. That's not on the brothers. And I work with all men most of the time. I live with all men. I raised all men. This is like my life. And I find them to be lovely and helpful and thoughtful and capable. But sometimes they just want to be told, hey, I want to interview for this job. I may not get this job. I still want to interview for this job because I will learn something in the process. So we got to be better. We've got to fix it. It's going to take a long time. When I graduated from MBA school in 1993, the colonel, my father, we call him the colonel, and we call my mother Mrs. Colonel. But the colonel said, your mother and I are very proud of you. That was a lot coming from the colonel who was in Vietnam 2 times. But he said, we thought the world would be better for you, but it's not. You and your sister, my sister's also in tech, my younger sister, and she's amazing. He said, we thought the world would be better for you. It's not. So, unfortunately, you're going to have to work harder. You're going to have to be better to be equal. You're not going to be paid as much as your male counterparts. You're going to have to really prove yourself over and over and over again. So don't be bugged about it. Just be better. And I was like, what's he talking about? I learned very quickly what he was talking about. I had to be better to be equal. And I just took that under my wing and just said, okay, just be better. Don't be bitter.
Yeah, I really like that. Because it comes together, right? Men do want to be told, like, how do I do this? What does this look like for you? But the other part is women need to support each other, which often they don't, and to have their voice and to speak up. I saw your presentation once, and I have thought so often on it. You said something like, leave the meeting in the meeting. Yeah. Because as I've watched that, I've watched people break out, especially women. Then they talk about it, and then they form groups, and, no, let's just keep it on the table and discuss it. Let's collaborate. Let's get to the point.
Yep.
Yeah, I really appreciate
another way to say there's no meeting after the meeting.
No meeting
right?
after the meeting.
No meeting after the meeting. And that's also from Pat Lincioni, that the meeting should happen in the room. Yeah. So what happens often is that we'll have a meeting, and the leader of the group's job is to mine for conflict, especially if you already know it's there, you to bring it out. And so if I said, Patty, this is different than what you had told me before. And you're like, oh, don't call on me. It's like, no, I'm mining for conflict, because once the conflict is aired, it evaporates, really. Yeah. And so, but it needs to be safe for people. They need to be able to trust that they can say, hey, this doesn't make sense to me. But the reality is it's not always going to be safe. It's not, you have to do it anyway, and you have to be brave. And if you're comfortable having the meeting after the meeting, you're never going to have power to get things done. There's this weird phenomena that I've been studying that women do well when they're equal. But when one breaks out and is in a position of power, it's like, it's odd.
It is
It
odd.
is odd. And I think it's cultural. I don't think people try to do this, but I see it happen so many times. I'm not entirely sure how to stop it other than to call attention to it.
Yeah.
And Chris knows this. People come to me, they're like, blah, 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 blah. I have this problem. I'm like, all right, do you want me to listen or do you want me to do something about it?
Right.
Oh, I want you to do something about it. It's like, okay, get Patty in here. Oh, I don't want that. Oh, so you want me just to listen? And they learn after a while that I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to be weaponized for them.
That is a great
I
word.
trust them to
Weaponized.
solve their problems. And when someone weaponizes me without me knowing about it and I find out about it, I will set them on fire. And it happened at Lumio, and I set them on fire. And everybody was like,
give an
"What?"
example of that, because I like feel that viscerally, but tell us an example.
So I'll give you an example. So my team at Lumio, great team, handpicked these folks, love this group. And they were working really hard for a big sales event we had in Orlando. And it was coming together great. We were trying to be careful with the money. We wanted to have a great time. We wanted to look bigger than we were, blah, 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 blah. And so I had a meeting with one of the product team, and they had a product, and I said that they had just finished building. So I said, hey, have you talked to the sales guys? Because they should roll this out. And he's like, no, great idea. So then I go back to my office. I find out like the next day that this product manager went to my team and said, oh, Carine wants a video. She wants like all this stuff that she wants to have done.
Okay.
So my team, who trusts me and I love them, but I beat them occasionally when they deserve it, but they survive it. So they're scrambling the Friday before and they're swearing. They're like, what the heck? So I'm like, what are y'all doing? They're like, he said you won this video. And I was like, what? I never said that. See, and that's what I mean by being weaponized. So I said, everybody stop. First of all, did it sound like me? No. Then you should have come to me. So that's on you. And then I went to this guy and his boss and said, here's the deal. Do not weaponize me to get your stuff done. You don't have the courage to do it yourself. You're not organized, and you want my team to like run and race and set them on fire. That's never going to happen again. So not only will I not support this, but anything you want from me, you're going to have to talk to your boss now. Because
you caused yourself a problem.
You created scorched earth there. And I was seriously, I was out of my mind. I was out of my mind. Because who does that? It's so cheeky.
Yeah, it's a terrible thing to do. It's fun to hear those kinds of stories, though, because it's real practical. I mean, that's happening every day.
Yeah, and you got to stop it when it's little. Otherwise, it becomes mythology, right? And I think that some of the garbage in companies is because over time, there's this mythology that's created. So if we as leaders decide, look, we are going to be people of tremendous integrity, that we are going to own all of our own garbage, we're going to stop the madness, we're going to try to create communication streams that are clean and clear without me. Like, I need people to just get stuff done. Don't come to me. But the mistake people make is that, look, I want to retain my power, so I want everything to come through me. That's a terrible way to be. You're much stronger if they don't need you, because Chris has heard me say this before. I already know I'm going to die. So I am building teams and companies and people that will work beautifully without me, because I've already seen it. So I have 2 sons, and they're 29 and 21, and they know I'm working to make sure that they can work beautifully without me. That same with my company. So when I leave Lumio, they already know. I've already told them my plan, because I want a peaceful transition of power. And it's not about me. It's about them thriving. And I'm like, guys, I built this team to work beautifully without me. Y'all are going to be fine. And I'm still here if you need me, because I haven't died yet. But I'm still here if you need me.
Yeah. Well, I love too when you said you used the word that it vaporizes. If you can pull it out of people, and then I think people are scared that to bring it out, because then it's conflict all over the place.
What's the worst thing that's going to happen?
That's right.
And can you survive it? 100%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%. And I don't think people try to offend each other. I really don't think people are like, how can I offend? I like this situation with my product manager. I think he was just he found a shortcut he thought that was going to get it done, but he was mistaken. And so I needed to make sure that stopped, 100%, because it's not productive way for anybody. And I would never have my team the Friday before they're leaving, when they're leaving the next day, to be like killing themselves for something. Like I would never do that to them.
So protective.
Yeah, because they are important to me.
Yeah.
And I love them. I know about them, but I also know that they're going to work beautifully without me.
Isn't that the definition of leader, is they build other leaders, right? To me, that's what I hear you saying.
Yeah, and we have a responsibility to help everyone. Like, I'm trying to get people to mentor more people. And like, oh, I can't, I'm so busy. It's like, look, I'm on like 5,000 boards and I still do it. Like, everyone could probably do 20 to 25 young people through technology, through like you can cyber stalk them, that you got Zoom, there's lots of ways to be in touch with people. I send texts, hey, how are you doing? Hey, did you get this job? Hey, okay, you didn't get this job. Not the worst thing ever, right? So like, what'd you learn from it? Did you call them back to find out why you didn't get the job? No, I didn't do that. Okay, well, you should do that. Well, I don't want to do that. Well, you need to do that. Then you do it anyway. And so we all have a responsibility. Like, I'm trying to teach my sons that the price for living on this planet is them helping and helping other people. And everyone you help there's other people they could help. They don't have to wait till they're in their career. Like, every student I help can help other young people, can help other high schoolers, can help other kids. If we can leapfrog everything that we learned, then we get there faster. It's a better fabric for our community.
Yeah. And speaking of kind of one area of potential mentorship that I feel like we need a lot more here in Utah is in raising money and raising capital, especially for women. Yeah. It's an area where Utah ranks last again in women that are getting funds or funded. But you've been known as somebody that has been successful at raising money.
Well, I don't think it's anything magical. I think that I'm just very practical. So my observation is that I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and a lot of the male entrepreneurs I work with, I love them because they're like, it slices, it dices, it regrows hair. It'll be $1 billion company. It's like they have so much energy and passion around what they built. And people love that. Yeah. Venture guys love that. Investors love that. And then my female investors, they're very careful. I need $1.2 million, and here's where every penny will go. And they tell you exactly what they're going to do, and that's exactly what they do. Whereas most of my male founders are like, we're going to do $1 billion. And they're like, okay, you did 3 million. Okay, but we're going to do $1 billion. Like, it's just that they're just so different. Mm-hmm. It's just different. And so I always am trying to, so I got an investor deck last night that I sent feedback to them. It's like, what problem are you trying to solve? How much money do you need? What are the use of proceeds? What is the product that you've created? Is it a vitamin? Is it a painkiller? Or is it an antibiotic? They're like, well, it's not really any of those. Like, no, you're missing the point. If it's a vitamin, then you built a product feature. That's not going to be a real company. But somebody could buy it, but it's not going to be $1 billion company. If you build a painkiller, people are interested in that. But if you built an antibiotic that's hard and it's going to take forever to do, like, you're going to have to talk to different folks about different investment, their investment thesis. And when you raise money, what people forget is that the investor that you're talking to, they have this fund and they have their own ecosystem. It may be a great product for them, but they don't have enough money in the fund because they got to save some of their dry powder to invest in the companies they've already invested in. Wherever they are in their fund cycle has quite a bit to play when you're funding companies. So you just got to make sure you understand what you're dealing with, and you got to be able to say, this is the problem I'm solving. Okay, that's not really a big problem. Okay, so you're not going to be able to raise a lot of money. But if you're solving a very big problem or you have some very unique thing that you've built, like, just be clear about that.
Yeah, would you say that for women that have been like more focused on the like very practical step-by-step programmatized probably everything and all the dollars.
They get discounted.
Yeah, I mean,
they get discounted.
And so is the advice that you maybe step away from that a little bit and be more...
Never.
Yeah.
Never. I think that over time will change because we will have female investors who built great companies, who were true to their word, who did what they said they were going to do. I have one company I invested in. She can tell you where every penny's been spent. She's very capital efficient, probably one of the best female entrepreneurs I've ever met, and she doesn't get credit for it. And I think that's probably too bad, but the people that have invested in her are proud of her. And so she's actually helping another company raise a big round, and she'll probably do great. She'll do great. But I don't ever want to tell people, just just be full of crap for a while. It's
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's
Don't be true to
exactly.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just be like a dude. No,
Yeah.
just be yourself, and it will get better
Mm.
over
I love that.
time. But it's, and this one of my female investors, she met with a firm in Silicon Valley, and they said, we will never invest in a female-led company. And I was like, okay, it's good to know. Like, we'll go back to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was devastated by it. I'm like, who cares?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of firms that are looking for
Mhm.
female-led companies. You just got to match the firm with the product. I get a lot of deal flow, and there's a lot of great ideas out there. There are a lot of great ideas that don't become real companies.
Yeah.
And so I also try to match them up with companies that would be interested in buying their technology.
Sure.
Because if you can have a couple base hits, you can keep going.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Carine, thank you so much for being here, and we really appreciate the time. I do want to ask just kind of one last kind of blanket question that you can answer however you'd like, but is there anything that you want us to say or express around sort of how women in general here in Utah can do more or less that that can help lift, or even men as well, right, to help lift where we're at today?
So I went to a weird event called Fortune Magazine's Most Powerful Women Conference. And I was like, it's probably a mistake that I'm here. But it was really cool because I sat next to Andrea Young from Avon. I mean, I sat next to some really cool people. The only male speaker they had was Warren Buffett. And I was like, this is interesting. And he said, someone asked him, are you worried about, the struggle that women have in our country? And he said, no, look what we've been able to build in the United States of America by ignoring half the population. So if we could just embrace the smarter, cleverer, more interesting part of the population, we will be unstoppable. And I thought about that for a long time. It's, if we can help women find their voice, if we can not tell women, hey, change how you raise money, if we can just have them embrace, look, this is how we do things and this is what we're great at. And if we can lift everyone, not just women, but if we can lift as we rise in our personal life and our career, then we might have a hope of like just being unstoppable. And there are so many bright, capable women, young men that lack confidence, that qualify things before they say them. So this is something that I listen for all the time. They say, well, this may not be what you're looking for, but I'm not sure this is the right answer, but they minimize what they're saying before they even say that. And I think that's cultural. I think we have to stop that. And I hate the word just. I'm just a legal assistant. I'm just an intern. Nope. I am a librarian. That came from the Mummy. It's like, if we could just, and don't say, I'm just going to UVU. Say, no, I'm going to UVU. I'm going to BYU. Like, just own everything. Like, don't apologize for anything. Just be the very best, wherever you're at, and just keep going. And I think there's tremendous success in people that just stay on the conveyor belt, but the ones that help people along the way. It's really important to me that if we all do what we can, it's pretty amazing. And I see that in so that I ride for Huntsman Cancer. I'm a cyclist. I'm not really a cyclist. I have the costume and everything, but I'm really good at fundraising for the event. So as of today, I'm $105,000 of a $100,000 raise. Amazing. And they've raised 140, and I'm 105 of it. It's because every donation's meaningful to me. $5, $10. And I've had people who donated $2. And I write every single person because it's that kind of effort that will change things in Utah.
Yeah. What I feel from you as you speak is just you're so genuine, and also you're forward facing, right? You're like, we don't have to look around to other states. We don't have to look behind us. Like, we're just going to go forward and bring people along with you.
Yep.
And I really love that. I love that approach.
And we need everybody.
We need everybody.
That's
yeah.
right.
We want everyone to be confident and do their thing and claim it.
And do what they love, right?
Yeah.
And how do you know until you try a bunch of different things?
Hard to know.
Yeah.
It's hard to know. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Carine. We really
Thank
appreciate you
you
being here, and good luck in everything that you do, and then the new endeavor as the CEO at some
Yes.
history
We'll
company.
come back and we'll talk about it.
Yeah,
It
that'd
will
be
be fun.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.